Welcome to Orthopod, a podcast about the people of orthopedics and their stories. We understand that we all play many roles in our careers and lives, and it is these very stories that ultimately inform our successes and failures. Well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Orthopod, brought to you by Ortho Evidence. I have here a very special guest, and I always say, all guests are special, but this one is particularly special. We have Dr. Chris Raynor. He's an orthopedic surgeon working in Cornwall, affiliated with the University of Ottawa, but he has a lot of other interesting attributes, and I think we're going to spend some time learning about this as we go through in the next few minutes. So, what are some of the things that you should know about him before we formally get started? One is he has a pretty prolific YouTube channel, goes by Dr. Chris, but the quotation is that he's not your everyday orthopedic surgeon. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. He's also founder of something that I want to learn more about called Human 2.0, and also is founder of another interesting entity called H-Warp, and we're going to spend some time chatting about that. Chris, how are you?
I am amazing, and thank you very much for having me. I think this is awesome to be here to speak with you today.
That's cool. So where do we start? Let me start with this. Not your everyday orthopedic surgeon. What do you mean by that? And I guess the point is, tell us about yourself rather than telling us what the everyday orthopedic surgeon is. What is it that compelled you to start this YouTube channel under that guise?
So I happen to have a number of children, all who want to be entertainers.
Okay.
And two of my children have fairly large YouTube channels. So my one son named Charles has two YouTube channels, one with 8 million subscribers, the other one with 4 million subscribers, and then his older brother also has a channel with about 900,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And so I had a first-hand account of what the life of a YouTuber is like. And I could see the power of social media and the ability to reach people with a message, whatever that message may be. And in the case of my sons, it was just kind of humor and jokes and all that kind of stuff. But I really got to see the power of that. And so when thinking about my role as an orthopedic surgeon, when you consider the CanMeds 2000 roles, right? And
right.
one of those roles is as an educator, right? And when I consider my role as an educator, and I think about my ability to speak to people and to reach people, I can educate people one-on-one, and I can do that in a clinic setting. And how many people do I see on a weekly basis? Maybe I see a couple hundred people. If I have the opportunity to teach residents or students, again, another couple hundred people. If I'm an academic, then my work might go out to another couple thousand people. But in all, when you think about the power of what you can reach with social media and with video on the internet these days, those numbers that I just previously mentioned pale in comparison to that. And I watched my sons build YouTube channels from nothing up to a total of 8 million subscribers. And so I started to think to myself, well, I'm not really an academic, and I want to educate people. I keep repeating the same thing over and over to people. Why don't I take this other medium, which is the internet and video on the internet, and why don't I take my orthopedic education and put it there and use that as the way to educate and reach people?
Let me ask you this. It seems to me that in some ways, and I have certainly watched stuff, and I quite enjoy watching your channel. It's quite fun to see the way you make it very interesting. And one formula I've seen you use, and I suspect you have a theory around what are ways in which other orthopedic surgeons can also reach out to their communities. One is you find things that are just of common interest in the community, things that are happening that are, whether it's a Hollywood injury or something, but you seem to be right, or a tennis injury or something. You're very, very quick and rapid in terms of your ability to say, okay, people are going to have questions about it because it's all over the news. Can we find a way to enlighten the audience? And the audience is, to your point, maybe the broader audience out there who just doesn't understand, and you're trying to kind of get some signal to all the noise they're getting, probably. Is that be a pretty reasonable way to approach it?
You hit the nail bang on the head. So when you look, when you look at the amount of content and the different styles of contents that are available on YouTube, there are lots of very formal channels which and they go through everything in much the same way as we would when we were being educated, right?
Yeah.
But the general population, I can like you have young kids, so you understand the retention time is minimal, right? Click, click, click. They click off. They are quick to click off.
15 seconds, right?
Exactly.
Would you say, like, how quickly do you, like, when you're putting out content?
Yes.
When you, like, what do you think? Is it the first 5 seconds? Say, if I don't have this individual in the first 5 seconds, I'm done. Like, what is it for you and for your sons or whoever? Like, how do they decide? What is that window of opportunity before someone flips?
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Okay.
Not so short as 5 seconds, but 20 seconds. If you have not given them the value proposition in 20 seconds or less, boom, gone.
They're gone.
The formula that I have used so far, which seems to have been successful, is that I crystallize down what I really want to educate people to. I have a book, and I'll do my research, and then in there I'll have 4 or 5 points that over the course of 20 minutes, 20 minutes, I just want to teach them those 4 things. That's it, right? Yeah. And I try to hide it in there. As you said, I try to find things that are trending, things that are interesting. No, because if you were to say to people, oh, would you like me to teach you about the classification of fractures? They're like, man, get out of here, right? But when I say, oh,
the famous comedian just had an injury.
Exactly, this guy, he just had this. Yeah. And in that, I can teach them about spinal cord injury. I can teach them about compression fractures. I can teach them about all kinds of things, lumbar decompression and instrument fusion. It's like, oh, geez, I taught them all of these concepts, whereas if I had said, hey, guys, do you want to learn about lumbar fractures? Right. They would have said, no, man. And so you have to be flexible a bit, because I never know what I'm going to teach people about. Never, right? Because I'm sitting there every day looking on what's trending on YouTube, what's trending on Google. Right. I'm like, hey, there's a topic. Boom, let's do that. Right? So
that totally makes sense. And I guess part of it for you then is being very timely with information. So, for example, there was a lot around sports injuries and the Achilles tendon injury when pretty famous basketball player Kevin Durant got injured, and then there was all kinds of expertise around, is he going to play, is he not going to play? Sport fans and just the general community has all kinds of theories, but they're looking for a trusted source. So I think what you're trying to do is say, well, let me be one of those trusted sources you can come to.
For sure. Yeah. And there's an element of humor on my site, right?
Yep.
And so I want to be approachable. I want to be somebody that people are comfortable with.
Right.
I do want to give them good information, and I'm in no way saying, look, I'm Jimmy Andrews, I'm the guy to go to. I'm Neil Elatrash. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, and my wife reminds me of this all the time.
Yeah. What
you and I take for granted in terms of education and our understanding, the average person has no clue about. Right? So I because I'm trying to appeal to the masses, I can just take whatever it is that I know, I can bring it down 3 or 4 notches, and still that's going to be valuable information to people, right?
Yeah. And you tell stories. I mean, part of it is that you're a very good storyteller, and content delivered in a poor way is not going to reach the audience, right? A amazing presenter with poor content will ultimately not necessarily meet. It's kind of figuring out the whole package. And I think we can learn a lot from watching and interacting with individuals who are doing it very well. Mm-hmm. Have you had any issues with medical content, just because you're in a hospital environment, you're talking lots to about patient issues, and you travel a lot and do this sort of stuff? Do you ever have issues, or do you ever have concerns with the hospital or your peers? Because there may be others out there in the community who are saying, I'd like to be more interactive with my community, similar to what you're doing. They may go sign up, check out your account, say, I'd like to do that for my community, or I'd like to learn from this or do some more. What kind of issues are there that we should be thinking about? Because it's not that easy to start start filming things in the operating
room?
room?
Oh, no, for sure. So first thing, that supersedes everything, HIPAA and PIPA compliance, right? So I have to make sure that, number one, I never have any specific patient identifiers on anything that I do. So I'm always cognizant of that.
Yes.
And then sometimes there are when I'm in and around the hospital, I try to, first of all, not film particular people. I try to film things in general. So I'll film the area, the space. If a person is, a staff member is in the shot, I try to keep it so that you don't really see their face, and I try to make it all very generic. If there's something where I have to film or I want to film something where I'm showing people's faces, I'll ask them in advance. And now that I've been doing it for a while in our hospital, I know the people who don't mind being in it, and I know the people who don't want to be in it, right? Sure. And so I kind of work around those requests. And then finally with patients, I will always, our consent has, just for general hospital purposes, it has a media waiver in it. But in specific, I'll ask patients if I think, this is an interesting topic, I want to film this, then I'll ask. And, for example, I had a video on what to expect when you're having shoulder surgery, right? And for that video, I was actually approached by the patient. And he works out at our facility, and he watches our videos, and he's like, and it just so happened he got injured. He's a motorcycle racer, got injured racing motorcycles, and asked to be referred to me. So when I saw him and we said we had to have surgery, or that he needed to have surgery, he said, "You know what? And I would love to be in one of your videos. Can you do a video about it?" And so perfect. That's perfect. Perfect scenario, right? I have permission to do it. The hospital's good with that. And I've not really had any problems. I did speak with one of the administrators of the hospital once, because they just wanted to make sure that, every hospital wants to look favorable.
Absolutely.
And so just to make sure that I'm not doing anything that's shining a negative light, right? And so I'm cool with that.
Confidentiality issues, all those sort of things.
For sure.
But there's lots of people, I think, there are lots of surgeons and healthcare practitioners, physiotherapists, lots of groups who are out there looking to try to, communicate information about patients. And so I think that's actually good to know that you've been able to find ways, and the hospital system generally, if you follow the appropriate steps, is going to be allowing. They're not going to be necessarily an impediment to you being able to reach out to the community you're interested in. Yeah, that's really good.
For sure. And I think, it's like, this is a win-win for everybody, right?
Yeah,
it's a win for us to be able to communicate with them, our patients, that way. It's a win for the patients to be able to get information from actual trusted professionals, right? But it's also a win for the hospital, because there are so many, for example, there are so many people that reach out to me in my comments and stuff. What hospital are you at? Oh my, that looks awesome. I would like to have my surgery there. And so from the hospital, from a PR perspective,
it's great.
Like it's a win.
So there's an impact positive that you can do that analysis and sort it out. That's really, nothing is quick, I imagine. This is not an overnight success story.
Everybody thinks it's going to be overnight, but it's not. And so, for example, Dr. Chris has been a year in the making.
Right.
And there's so many things that we learn along the way. But when I think about how I want to portray myself, what people see, I am letting them into my life to some extent.
Right.
And again, I have the benefit of having watched my son do this, right?
Right.
So, or my sons, I should say, do this. So I know kind of from them what works, and I have to kind of take what works for their audience and then kind of distill that to apply that to my own audience, because I don't want the exact same audience that they have, right?
Right.
But I know that there are, if you think about this for a second, every minute, there are 400 hours worth of video that are uploaded to YouTube. Every minute of every day, all day, all the time. So
you're competing with that.
You're competing with that, right?
Yeah.
And so what you see on YouTube is such a small part. So what will separate me from any other orthopedic guy out there who wants to educate people? Nothing. My personality, right?
Oh, for sure.
So and
the first 20 seconds of when I do look at your videos, you're pretty well caught in the first 20 seconds. I mean, you know what you're going to say. You're definitely, you are, I wouldn't say larger than life, because you're pretty large in life now too, right? But you're definitely a really just inspiring individual. On camera for sure, like you can see it.
So the way that I am on the video, and yes, I turn things up a little bit for the camera,
sure,
right?
Well,
because you want to keep people engaged. But the way I am on camera is that's me in life, right? And I'm, you asked me a little bit about the brand, not your everyday ortho. Why did I come up with that? I came up with that. I wanted a tagline. I want to educate people, but I'm not like. It's not to say that I'm better. I'm not. I'm different than my colleagues. I'm not like, you have an influence among, you're well respected in the orthopedic community and abroad, here and abroad, because of what you've done in an academic setting. I don't have that foundation to stand on top of, right? I don't have that. So I have to come up with something else. And so for me, the thing that makes me recognizable is going to be the way that I interact with people. And the other thing is, I've realized when I watch my son, other big YouTube channels, it's all about how you make people feel, right? So if I can not only educate people, but something that I've been trying to do recently, especially with the Instagram stories, I had never used this before, Instagram. Okay. And I started, I had Instagram followers, but I just wasn't really doing it. And I've kind of switched modes a little bit, not so much on Twitter and more on Instagram.
Yes.
Because I think Instagram is more of the everyday man's sort of social media platform. And I've really tried to be out there to, number one, be exciting and engaging. Number two, let people into my life. Number three, make them feel good, because people want to feel good about themselves, about their lives. So if I can throw a little education in there, right?
Yeah,
when people are not realizing that I'm educating them, then that's a win.
That's it.
Right?
That's it. That's exactly
right.
Right.
That's the goal.
That is exactly it. So, I can talk all day. I really could about understanding, what you've learned from YouTube and social media. But I keep staring at your shirt, and your shirt has Human 2.0. Yeah. And I must say, I'm curious what Human 2.0 is, and what is the rationale behind you founding this entity?
So Human 2.0 is a movement facility so that's the term we like to use. So basically it's a rehabilitation and prehabilitation movement facility, or facility. That's where I have my private office. I have a sports med that I partner with there, and then we have physio, but then we also have a gym, and we have group training and individual and team training and performance training there. And the idea behind Human 2.0, so when we go through our training, we learn about orthopedic stuff.
Yep.
We touch a little bit on rehab, but that's not our wheelhouse, right? We hand it off to somebody, right? If you're fortunate, you work in a place where you have a close relationship with the rehabilitation specialist, but in most places, they don't have that. If you're working in a community setting, you send somebody off with a prescription to physiotherapy, and they go get that. And oftentimes, patients will come back, and you'll ask them what they did for rehabilitation, and we really have no influence over that. And so I kind of, when I went through my training, I was trained to kind of write the physiotherapy rec out. Use this protocol and send people along the way. But when I first started private practice, and I started looking at the results that people would get, and I'd be disappointed in many cases, and I'd say, oh geez, what did they do? They'd tell me, and I would not be happy with that. Also, one of the other things that I did when I first started, and I still do today, is insurance evaluations. And when I started to question people about what kind of, they would say to me, oh, I've been treated for this injury for 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, and I said, oh, really? What have they done? They'd tell me the physiotherapy, and they would describe it, and I'd be shaking my head. This is a problem. Because they wouldn't be getting the kind of care that I thought that they needed. And so it started to dawn on me that there needs to be a more of a continuum of care. When you look at musculoskeletal care, there needs to be more of a continuum or continuous spectrum from the time they're injured to the time they are treated operatively, rehabilitated back to their regular life, and then beyond, right? And so Human 2.0 is my embodiment of that, where I take everything from before surgery, through surgery, to after surgery, to not only to wellness, but I want to make you better than you were previously, because previously you got injured. So I want to make you not just the original human 1.0, I want to make you human 2.0.
It's a lofty aspiration, but that's an aspiration you have to have if you want to make big change.
For sure.
And we have in Ortho Evidence a community of physiotherapists and really skilled physiotherapists in our community, in Canada and abroad. Mm-hmm. And I would think that they would probably have a very similar belief to you that when we work in silos, both groups are I'm sure if we had, a physiotherapist sitting here, they would say, we have the same challenges that we're not able to communicate directly with other healthcare providers, so we're providing optimal care. And maybe, the solution that we're seeing, you're doing it as a human 2.0 approach, and there's other groups that may not be branding it quite that way, but are trying to do the same thing, right? It's a multidisciplinary approach to care in which ultimately we break down silos. And the biggest challenge we have found, and Ortho Evidence, for example, has been, and this is the premise, right, which is that if we're all at least reading the same content, there's a good chance that we can have reasonable debate around it, right? Because what would happen all the time, and to some degree, orthopedics, and similarly with physio, let's use orthophysio. Physiotherapy have a very, their journals are specific to physiotherapists, and they're reading them. And they're not necessarily always connected to the orthopedic literature, and the orthopedic surgeons certainly aren't reading that on the same topics.
Sure.
And we don't have a chance to really debate because we think, well, we're right. They say, well, right. What are you talking about? You're right. You're crazy. We're right.
Yep.
And so we've been trying to build this sort of, we call it oasis, where everyone comes to drink. And the goal is to bring good quality information, right? Mm-hmm. Which has been part of the premise of what we're doing. So on that note, how do you openly and very candidly said, I'm not an academic, but really what you're doing is you're educating. So in many ways, you do meet the criteria of an academic, as many people do. Mm-hmm. How does, maybe not conducting research, but how do you keep up with information? Like, how do you keep up with what's going on, what's new? We had this premise, and I'm not saying that what we're doing is the perfect thing, but I am curious if the kind of things that we do at Ortho Evidence actually add value to you in your day-to-day. And I'm not saying Ortho Evidence specifically, but that kind of thing, pre-appraised, where someone goes through all the information and kind of puts it out there so in your limited amount of time, you can get the most out of the time you have. Because that's the preference for all of us. I can't read everything.
Sure.
But how do you use information in your day-to-day life?
Well, so for me, I have a couple of tools. Number one, I follow a number. Obviously, I have. I'm a member of ANA. I'm a member of the American Academy, and all these kinds of things. So I get that. I get those journals, right? Right. But to be honest, most of the time, I don't have an opportunity to read all the way through those.
And by the way, the single journal, even the best content in a single journal, you miss 95% of the best stuff, right? Because a single journal might have one really high quality paper from methods. Chances are you've missed 95% of the rest of them. So that's the other biggest challenge. I can't remember the last time I've read a paper from the first word to the last word. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever done it in the last decade or so.
Okay.
Right? So you're not alone in that.
Well, right? So I don't have the time to do that. And so number one, so I'm on Twitter, and I follow a number of orthopedic journals, and I follow a number of orthopedic surgeons.
Okay.
So I'll kind of pay attention to what they're discussing, right, and what journal articles come up on there, and then I'll go and I'll look up those articles. Usually they'll have a reference to the article, so I'll look up the article and I'll read over that. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then, to be honest, and it's awesome that I'm here, but Ortho Evidence is a huge tool for myself, but also the background behind my channel. So a lot of the time, either for posts that are on Human 2.0 website or Dr. Chris, and when I'm doing some research over general topics for a video that I'm going to do, we go to Ortho Evidence all the time, just because, if I don't, you'll understand this. And so I'm a full-time orthopedic surgeon. I also run a business with my wife.
Yeah.
And then I do this YouTube channel, which consumes an inordinate amount of time.
Sure it does.
So I have to be as efficient with my time as possible.
Yeah.
And to be able to go to Ortho Evidence and it's like, okay, I'm looking at this topic, boom, I do a search, oh, there it is, great, here are the articles, all right, yep, this article only has this kind of power, this article has that kind of power, great, and I can get the points that I want from that, and I know that your team has done the work, that if I had the time to do this myself, I would do that.
Well, that's the thing, right? So like exactly the same thing. Our audience is probably not the same audience that you have on your YouTube channel. However, because we're trying to say, because our content is pretty well summarized content from primary peer-reviewed literature. But we're hoping that if we get that content out to the right people, which is, our membership, they can go and further distill it so the rest of the community can have it, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a lot of interest in what you're doing from our membership, because I think seeing another individual, in the same field doing what you're doing is a really interesting role modeling opportunity for us to say, okay, well, are there more we can be doing in our own groups, and how do we learn from that? And so that's just been, particularly very interesting for me. So it's really cool. So one last thing I'd like to ask you about, is you have founded H-Warp. So what is H-Warp, and how do you think it's going to be helping the community or helping problems?
Okay, so H-Warp is basically a health outcomes relationship manager. It's a software application that we are creating, and when you think about electronic medical records today, everybody's going to electronic medical records, so that we can digitize all of our health information. However, we have now, by adding these electronic medical records, we have decreased our ability to interact with patients.
Right.
Okay, and we have not only have we done that, we have also reduced the efficiency with which we interact with people and with which we see patients. So, for example, if you have a clinic where you have an average consult clinic, say 20 patients, right? Now you spend all this time working on inputting information into the chart, very little time talking to them, and it slows you down. Yeah. So and it's also a very one-way street, right? There's no real interaction with the patient. Right. What we want to do with H-Warp, we've tried to create a software platform that improves physician efficiency, and it allows us to gain back the time that we lost with the patient. And what this platform does, basically, it's now, I bill it to people as sort of the Facebook of medicine. Okay. And what we've tried to create is a platform where, if you think about how you would interact with a patient, if you have a clinic where you see 20 people, you're going to be doing some of the same things 20 times, over and over and over again, right? When the patient leaves, they're going to be asking the same questions over and over and again. Right. So now what we've tried to do, having had this experience with YouTube, I've tried to think, okay, well, how can I now automate this process and disseminate this information to people on an individualized basis, but do it within a platform, right, that I can monitor and have analytics about. So, for example, with H-Warp, the first basic program that we're working on is going to be called, say, the knee arthroscopy, and then we just chose that because it's easy. It's something I do a lot of. So basically, it is going to have a workflow that is based on what I do in my practice, and so we would tailor it to each physician's individual practice, and the patient would have an app. The physician would have a dashboard. And so once I see you in the clinic, we've decided that you're going to go to surgery. Yep. I now input the surgery date. The app takes over, and it has the artificial intelligence, which monitors all of the analytics. So, for example, your surgery is next Wednesday. So on Monday, the software, based off of my workflow, now emails you and says, hey, Mo, your surgery is in 2 days. don't forget to make sure that you have your crutches. Here are the directions to the hospital. Oh, you live this far away from the hospital.
It's a full management system.
You should leave at this time, right? To make sure that you make it. The night before, I'll say, oh, Mo, by the way, don't make sure that you have nothing to eat after midnight.
Yeah.
Do all these times to prep.
Yeah.
It'll alarm you in the morning. And all of these things that we would normally have our receptionist do or whatever, it's going to automate that process.
Got it.
Every time you as a patient interact with that, it's going to record that information. So now on my dashboard, I wake up in the morning, I see, oh, a bunch of green flags, and then a red flag. Oh, what's the red flag? That red flag is something I got to pay attention to. Oh, Mo forgot to bring his crutches, right, to surgery. So now later on during the day, I go and I see you in the pre-op holding before surgery. By the way, Mo, I see that you forgot your crutches today.
Yes.
No problem. We're going to take care of that. We'll get this taken care of. And then post-operatively, when you go, it will say, oh, okay, so Mo, have you done these exercises today?
Yeah.
Cue video that comes up from a YouTube library.
Yep.
Here are the exercises that we'd like you to do today.
Yeah.
Right? This is what you're going to be doing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the app will keep reminding you of these things. Every time you interact, there's going to be a record. It's going to be recorded on there, and it will also show up in a aggregate form on the physician's dashboard, right? So then now when I come to see you, or when you come to see me at your post-op visit in 2 weeks, I see that everything was green flags. Oh, I see on post-op day number 10, you had a red flag increase, and it was increased pain. So Mo, I see that everything's been going well. You've been doing all your physio. You've done the exercises. By the way, what happened on post-op day number 10? I see that you had some pain here. And oh, geez, I went shopping with my wife. I walked a little bit extra.
So it really gives you that feedback.
Gives you all of that feedback. And then in the end, what we'd like to do is have, basically you'll have, once you have all of that information aggregate, you'll be able to, we're designing it so that it's EMR 4.0 compliant, which is basically the standard that all the EMRs have to use. So basically you'll be able to print a button. So if you use, so for myself, I use Accuro as an EMR. You can then export to Accuro, and so now it has basically a summary of your last 2 weeks in Accuro. So rather than me sitting there having to type, take clinical notes, I'm basically just check marking, yes, this is all accurate, what was here, I discussed it with him, good, export, boom. That now becomes
your note.
We don't want to be an EMR. We don't want to be that, right? But we would like to provide information that can then be exported.
Yeah, like a bolt-on. Yeah, absolutely
right?
true. Yeah.
And then which then allows us to interact with the patients instead of sitting there, or typing. I've tried everything, dictating. I've tried having a scribe. Like I've tried it all.
Yeah.
So this is a way for us to make the whole process more efficient. And when we first developed this, I thought, CRM tools, salespeople, they have client relationship managers that automate all this stuff. And I thought, wait a minute, like we're supposed to be smart. We're surgeons. Why is it that these guys who are salespeople have this kind of stuff that automates all this, and we don't? Right.
Well, I mean, I always say in general, on the research side of things, Chris, I always say if we own the evidence, we own the story. If you own the tools, you're able to be much more efficient with your own system. We don't want to, it's always easier to work from within. We don't want other people telling us how to practice and how to do things. And if we can, and generally, the efficiencies are going to be found from within because we know the problems we have.
No, exactly.
So we're trying to find them.
What doesn't work.
Yeah. You have been. I mean, this time has gone by so fast. You are a man of many, many talents, and I hope we can get you back and chat more.
I'd love to come back.
And continue as you continue to grow your presence in every possible way. But, it's been really, really a pleasure having you with us today. And I can't thank you enough for stopping by. And we hope to see you again soon. Dr. Chris Raynor. And again, check him out on his YouTube channel. Check him out on Instagram at Stable Knees. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So Stable Knees, STABLE NEEZ. Right. So you can find him there. And we'll make sure we post all that for you. And I wish you all the best. Great.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you having me here as a guest. This has been a phenomenal experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching Orthopod. Stay tuned for more episodes.